Hi guys, welcome back to Keyboard. This is Scott K. If you remember my last video, I covered the KBD67 LITE and talked about how great of an entry option that was. With an FR4 plate upgrade, the KBD67 LITE really delivered a great Tactile experience and provided a great performance at a comfortable $109. However, before I could crown it the best entry option right now, we need to look at another contender. The Portico by Key.co. The Portico is essentially Key.co's answer to the KBD fans' KBD67 LITE. It is also a 65% form factor, features a similar ABS case construction, gasket mounting, and a standard FR4 plate. Similar to the KBD67 LITE, it is also a hot swap RGB keyboard that allows for both QMK and VIA customization. As like the KBD67 LITE, the Portico also comes in a very nice quality carrying case with zipper color match to the keyboard case color. So, judging by this, you guessed it, I got the terminal green color case. Here is a good look at the keyboard kit. I call this a kit because although it looks assembled, it was just barely put together for shipping purposes and requires further assembly. In addition, it ships with a set of color-matched C3 equal stabilizers which require you to tear everything apart and install. Also inside, you'll find this 1990s telephone cord style USB-C cable, which I felt was eh. And finally, there's a set of extra gaskets for the plate if need arises in the future. Similar to the KBD67 LITE, you undo some screws on the bottom and the top frame just lifts straight up. Once you get the frame off, you can see that the gasket mounting structure of the keyboard like this here. Unlike the KBD67 LITE and how that gasket was actually molded into the plate dampener, the Portico takes on a more traditional approach of gaskets on the plate itself. This being a proper gasket mounted keyboard, you can see how the plate on the PCB assembly flexes and provides a nice give for that comfortable floating typing experience similar to how the KBD67 LITE was, with its flexible silicone layer acting as the gasket. For your reference, here's another look at the KBD67 LITE in its stock configuration with the PC plate and the silicone gasket mounting structure. The Portico's plate and PCB is then put together with the help of standoffs and screws that join everything from the top. Once you remove the screws, you can separate the plate from the PCB to expose the dampening layer underneath. Interestingly enough, unlike most other keyboards with a foam or silicone style dampener, the Portico uses felt, which does a very good job of soaking up the noise and vibration, maybe too good. With the dampening felt removed, you can see now the PCB in its full glory. Similar to the KBD67 LITE, the Portico is also a south-facing hot swap PCB with per key RGB and individual SMD LED in the PCB. Here's a look at the underside with KO hot swap sockets and embedded RGB LEDs. However, unlike the KBD67 LITE, the Portico's PCB also features down-firing LEDs, which helps to illuminate the case itself on the bottom. Moving on to the lower case and its contents, you can see that the Key.co added in a layer of silicone dampening, but with an interesting honeycomb shape. Theoretically, this should help to curb the hollow sound without taking away the resonating volume to give the keyboard a voice. We'll find out if that works. Here's a quick look at the upper frame. Once again, similar to the KBD67 LITE, the Portico also features metal screw hardware to ensure durability during disassembly and assembly, which is a nice touch. Now that we covered the keyboard in detail, we can start the assembly process. I wholly modded the provided C3 equal stabilizers and installed them into the PCB. The Portico comes with color match stabilizers, so this was a very nice, well thought out detail that I appreciated. Since we're going to be comparing this to the KBD67 LITE, I pulled out some mint switches once again. Although not exactly the same green as the case, I don't think it looks too bad. If you remember how thocky this was on the KBD67 LITE, I hope the Portico can also provide a similar sound profile. But before we put the caps on and jump straight into the typing test, let's take a look at the RGB features of the Portico. And yes, this thing has some great RGB. Although both Portico and the KBD67 LITE feature per key RGB, I do feel like the Portico's execution was slightly better. For some reason, the RGB seems a little bit more vibrant on the Portico than it actually did on the KBD67 LITE. Also, it has numerous different RGB color schemes to suit every taste and need. If RGB is something that you prioritize, then keep this in mind when comparing the two very similar boards. Now, with pretty much everything else covered, let's check out how this thing sounds. You might be wondering, yo Scott, did you make sure to turn the mic on? I know, I wondered the same thing. Even with the similarities to the KBD67 LITE, the Portico comes off very muted and somewhat kills the sound of the switch. I was hearing a lot more keycap with the Portico than anything. Here's a quick reference to the KBD67 LITE with the same combo. I know that many have mentioned that the KBD67 LITE is more on the muted side. I felt it provided a much bigger sound profile than the Portico. Both the PC and the FR4 plate helped to accentuate the switch more than what the Portico was able to produce. I was thinking, what if I put some clackier switches like the Duroc Sunflower? What will happen to the Portico? So let's take a listen. With the switches like the Duroc Sunflower, the Portico did come out alive a bit more, but still was on the very restrained side compared to the KBD67 LITE. I felt like the keyboard was somewhat eating the sound of the switch, and what I mostly heard was the keycap and an odd case reverb. I was beginning to think, oh no, is this going to be a plastic GMMK Pro? A keyboard that makes every switch pretty much sound the same? So I tried a little experiment with a few different tactiles. While not exactly the same, I did feel like the Portico somewhat has a normalizing effect on the switches and somewhat causes them to sound very similar to each other, muted. Perhaps it's just dampening things too well. Overall, I felt like the Portico had a very narrow soundstage and sounds a bit congested. Since this is a head-to-head comparison, I created a little table to compare the KBD67 LITE directly against the Portico in various different performance metrics. Once again, this is my opinion and purely subjective, so please take everything with a grain of salt. I judged the keyboards on 7 different criteria, starting with aesthetics, which consists of the case design and also includes details like the RGB lighting effects. This is purely subjective. The next criteria is finish quality, looking at things like fit, feel, and finish, and overall how well the keyboard was put together and how it feels in your hands. After that is the customization capabilities, which includes what the PCB can do, if it could run QMK, VIA, and the like. Next is a typing sound, which is pretty self-explanatory. Next is a typing feel, which can be very subjective, but takes into account how the keyboard reacts during everyday typing, how well it represents the switch, the caps, and how satisfying it is to use. Somewhat related but different is comfort. So this is looking at the typing angle, how the edges are, is it overly sharp like the tofu, does it require wrist rest, and how does it fare on extended usage sessions on your fingers and joints. Finally, the price. This is the only objective criteria, and these both being entry models, an important one to consider. Then I tally everything up and give it a total score so we can ultimately determine which one of these is the crowning king of the entry-level gaskets. Getting started with the aesthetics, I give the win to the Portico. Although I'm not the biggest fan of this crazy bright dinosaur green, I really liked how the Portico was able to hide away all of its seams and provided a very nice and clean look. I also liked the soft rounded edges of the Portico a little bit more than the KBD67 LITE, and overall the side profile was very pleasing to my eyes. For the finish quality, I gave the win to the KBD67 LITE. When both the keyboards were fully assembled, it was pretty easy to tell that the KBD67 LITE had a more solid and tighter construction, and the molding quality was also superior than that of the Portico. For customization, it was a tie. Both of the keyboards offer QMK and VIA support, and overall, both keyboards were pretty much able to do the exact same functions. With that said, they're both very capable and very easy to customize. They both win in my books. Now, this is an important one for me, the typing sound. There are so many boards out there in a reasonable price range that deliver a great typing sound that there really is no excuse for these modern boards to fail in this department. For me, the decision was very easy. The KBD67 LITE offered a much cleaner, thockier sound that had a lot of personality with the right switch. The Portico, on the other hand, has a tendency to absorb all the sound and takes away the characteristics of the switch. Some may prefer this, but I much prefer the sound of the KBD67 LITE over the Portico. Another very important metric for me, the typing feel. I know this is very subjective and everyone has a different feeling about this, but when I mean typing feel, I don't mean just how flexible and bouncy the keyboard is. I was looking for a comfortable feel that doesn't reverb the shock back to your fingers, but that also allows me to enjoy the switch bottom out and fully experience the differences of each switch and cap. Between the KBD67 LITE and the Portico is definitely the softer, more flexible, and dampened typing experience and feel, but I felt like it was a little tad too much. The switches felt somewhat mushy to my fingers, and this also took away some of the tactility of the tactile switches and made linears feel a bit spongy. I know this is purely my preference, and many of you might like that gentle typing experience, but the KBD67 LITE wins easily for me here. But on the flip side, the soft, gentle typing experience did help the Portico feel more comfortable, especially on long typing binges. I feel like I may keep the Portico around for those days when I feel very fatigued by hyper-tactile, hyper-responsive keyboards with brass plates. This is a Sunday afternoon chill with a nice drink type of keyboard. The case height was also very nice, and overall, just a very easy keyboard to type on. Finally, the price. This is an easy one because it's the only objective metric here. At the time of the review, the KBD67 LITE was $109 while the Portico was $135. I know both of these keyboards are fairly difficult to get, but if you do find one, that is what they're being sold for retail. So it's an easy win for the KBD67 LITE because, yeah, math as well, absolute. So what does that bring our total out to? 5 points for the KBD67 LITE and 3 points for the Portico. So, once again, math comes in here and lets us know that the winner is KBD67 LITE. Although it did not win this comparison, I don't want you guys to think that the Portico is a horrible keyboard. It definitely is not. It still delivers a great set of features and features all the latest design aspects that people look for in a modern keyboard. It looks great, it's a hot swap with RGB, it's fully programmable and delivers a very comfortable typing experience. However, if I had to choose between this and the KBD67 LITE, the choice is pretty clear for me. I'll go with the KBD67 LITE. Once again, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and I'll have more content for you in the future. YouTube tells me that 85% of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you can hit that subscribe button, I really appreciate it. Also, I started a Discord server, so please check out in the descriptions below and join the keyboard community. Thanks for watching.